Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about EUI-64 versus that privacy extension. Okay, so as we talked about in previous video, the router advertisement, when the option is the autonomous address flag, the A flag, is set to 1, that tells the device to create its own IPv6 address using the prefix in the router advertisement and the prefix length, and then just come up with its own interface ID. Okay, it can use either EUI64 or a random 64-bit value. Let's take a look at the EUI64 process first. That actually uses its Ethernet MAC address. Okay, so how is an Ethernet MAC address converted into an EUI64 format for the interface ID? Remember, Ethernet MAC addresses are 48 bits. We have an organizationally unique identifier, the vendor portion, and a device identifier, the unique portion for that OUI. Okay, that's 48 bits. So let's split those two parts in half and insert 16 bits, FFFE. Okay. That creates a 64-bit identifier, but we're not done yet. Okay. In EUI64, they take that 7th bit and they flip it. It's called the UL bit, Universal Local Bit. I'm not going to go into the details of why they do that, but it's done. So it actually, you'll notice it actually changes the second hexadecimal digit value. So our EUI64 will have FFFE in the middle and that second hexadecimal digit modified. All right, so if I do IP config here on my device and I see an IPv6 address that has FFFE in the middle, okay, chances are that it has received that address using EUI64. Now you might be wondering, why a 64-bit interface ID? Okay, well, 64-bit interface IDs, it does accommodate the IEEE specification for a new 64-bit MAC address. But more importantly, it means processing is done on a 64-bit boundary. 32, anything on increments of 32 is always better for today's processors. All right, so we have mentioned this in the past, EUI64 versus random. Depending upon the operating system, it may use a random value instead of the EUI64. And we can see that some operating systems like Windows and Linux have moved away from EUI64 and have you do randomly generated numbers. Just about all operating systems allow you to decide whether you want to use EUI64 or random. Again, it's that MAC address that people don't like. They don't like having the possibility of everything they do traced to a specific interface ID. You know, the 64-bit interface IDs, if it's always the same wherever you go, and if it's always based on your MAC address, no matter what this network address is, this is so unique with 18 quintillion possibilities. Chances are somebody has your same interface ID is pretty slight. Makes it more likely you can be kind of tracked, and no matter what network you're on, they know where these packets are coming from or going to. So people like to want to make these random and always changing. Okay, so here we have a Windows 7 machine, and notice that I do IP config here, and notice there's no FFFE in the middle. Okay, and the link local address was also created using a random interface number, or a random number for the interface ID. Okay, so that's the difference between the EUI64 and the privacy extension. Again, it's usually for Slack and the interface ID when the device needs to come up with its own interface ID.